forward port today. Window opens at 12:33 p.m. Central Time.
And we're looking about 30 seconds away from the final approach.
Starliner Houston on the big loop. You are go to command final approach with tap stop 4 OFM, trigger next.
Here comes Suni's putting in the trigger next. Tap stop 4.
Station Houston on the big loop for ISS crew. Perform 1.106 steps 1.3 and 1.4.
Station copies, executing 1.3, 1.4, 1.106.
And the Starliner crew have gotten the authority to proceed for the final approach. Starliner is currently at just over 9 meters away, approaching at about 0.05 meters per second, or 5 centimeters per second, towards the known 2 forward docking port.
Again, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore, the commander, and Suni Williams, the pilot, on the crew flight test today. This is an autonomous docking, meaning they are monitoring from inside Starliner, but the spacecraft is currently flying itself. Starliner now less than 7 meters away from the International Space Station. All good calls on the ground.
Estimated time of contact is 2 minutes.
Now approximately 5 meters.
And Starliner passing through 4 meters.
Now less than 3 meters away from the International Space Station. Good performance calls coming from teams in mission control.
Starliner at 1.5 meters away, currently about 25 seconds from docking. 0.5 meters.
Contact capture.
We see the same.
At 12:34 p.m. Central Time, above the southern Indian Ocean, we have confirmation of contact and capture of NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test and Starliner aboard the International Space Station. Butch and Suni have made their arrival.
Starliner's soft capture system has finished attenuating any motion after initial capture. Next step for the NASA docking system is to retract its extension arms. It'll allow the hooks on the hard capture system to attach to the docking port on the Node 2 forward international docking adapter.
And with the arrival of Starliner, again, that coming at 12:34 p.m. Central Time, we have 2 American crewed spacecraft aboard the International Space Station. And with contact and capture of the Starliner spacecraft, we are now securing the spacecraft to that Node 2 forward port. First step in that is ring retraction of the NASA docking system soft capture ring. Once that's complete, there are 12 hooks that will need to drive and more firmly secure the spacecraft. Those will happen in 2 sets of 6. This takes anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes after the spacecraft arriving to the International Space Station.
Houston Station on the big loop, thrusters disabled for hard maintenance.
Houston copies.
We're now about 6.5 minutes after initial contact and capture of the soft capture system. We can expect the hard capture hooks to start anytime after about 7 minutes from that soft capture time frame. So while we're waiting for the NASA docking system on the Starliner side to finish completing its docking procedure, let's go over to the International Space Station Flight Control Room.
Hey, thank you, Jim. We're following along every step of the way here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Flight Director Judd Freeling working hand in hand with the teams over with you over in Starliner Mission Control, ensuring that everybody's following the joint flight rules that are necessary. There's Judd Freeling in the forward end. To his left is Diana Trujillo, working to monitor all the different steps together. Will Vu over to Vince's right is to Vincent LaCourt's right is Will Vu, the voice from Mission Control here in Houston, up to the crew aboard the International Space Station. Space Station has a couple of maneuvers in order to proceed with the next steps of retracting the NASA docking system ring on the Starliner. The thrusters need to be disabled on the International Space Station side, and the International docking adapter must be aligned with the NASA docking system. Teams here in Mission Control Houston verifying all of those have passed, so we're following along to proceed towards a hard capture. Again, we had soft capture confirmed at 12:34 p.m. Central Time. The hard capture secures Starliner to the International Space Station. Expect to hear some words from the crew after that hard docking is complete. In the meantime, lots to follow along with to ensure a safe docking, a safe hard docking of Starliner to the International Space Station. A couple of steps. Now, of course, after that hard dock is complete, we still have to go ahead and open up the hatches, so the teams here will remain on console and follow along through the methodical steps necessary to pressurize the vestibule in between Starliner and the International Space Station. That vestibule is the International Docking Adapter. Right now, it has been exposed to vacuum, awaiting for Starliner's arrival. Once Starliner is hard docked, they'll follow procedures in order to pressurize that vestibule from 0 psi to match that of Starliner and the International Space Station, same as we have here at sea level, 14.7 psi. That will take some time in order to accomplish. Now, because we docked on the second opportunity here, the second docking window that we were tracking as part of the flight to the International Space Station, we'll follow along to provide estimated times of hatch opening and the welcome ceremony, where the Expedition 71 crew will formally welcome the two first-time flyers of Starliner to the International Space Station, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, the first to fly the Boeing Starliner. Bringing you live views from here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Flight Director Vincent LaCourte talking with the flight control team. We're all waiting for the hard capture of Starliner to the International Space Station. Again, soft capture confirmed at 12:34 p.m. Central Time. We're in a short handover period, so we do not quite have live views from the International Space Station. Should hopefully be regaining those shortly to show you some live views of the spacecraft, the two spacecraft docked together, International Space Station and the Starliner. Fellow Flight Director T.J. Creamer was just passing behind Vincent LaCourte and Diana Trujillo. Lots of team members here in Mission Control Houston following along through the steps after docking the Starliner to the International Space Station. Visiting Vehicle Officer Dory Tomeko is following along with the teams over in the Starliner Flight Control Room. The visiting vehicle officer, a console position here in Mission Control Houston that works very closely with any visiting vehicle spacecraft. The choreography necessary to safely dock and hard capture a visiting vehicle to the International Space Station must be carefully coordinated, and even events on board the International Space Station must be coordinated as well. Again, we talked about the attitude control systems with thrusters inhibited on the space station. Right now, control moment gyros are the ones that are holding the International Space Station in place until after the hard capture when those thrusters can be re-enabled. There's also an exercise constraint on board the International Space Station, trying to limit the vibrations during dynamic operations of docking two spacecraft together at 17,500 miles an hour. For those just tuning in, we do have a contact and soft capture of the Starliner spacecraft to the International Space Station. Butch Wilmore, Suni Williams, currently at the forward end of the space station inside the Starliner spacecraft. Teams here in Mission Control Houston, the International Space Station Flight Control Team working hand in hand with Starliner Flight Control right down the hall here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The teams are now working through carefully choreographed procedures to ensure a hard docking to the International Space Station. After soft capture is confirmed, there is a series of very critical steps in order for that NASA docking system ring to retract on the Starliner spacecraft, pulling in the spacecraft for a hard dock. At this time, all the flight controllers you see here in the room are watching over those systems and following those procedures very carefully. This is not the first time that Starliner has docked to the International Space Station. Of course, we did have Starliner dock as part of the uncrewed flight demonstration that was OFT-2. This is the first docking with crew inside. Of course, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, both NASA astronauts, awaiting for their arrival aboard the International Space Station. We'll be providing you periodic updates and continuing our coverage through the entire procedure, including the hard dock and welcome of the Starliner crew to the International Space Station. Again, we'll remain on air continuously through the entire procedure of hard docking to the International Space Station. The docking of Starliner to the International Space Station leaves a small gap called a vestibule in between the station and the Starliner. That vestibule is currently at vacuum, and methodically over the next few hours needs to be, once, of course, hard dock is confirmed, needs to be pressurized up to sea level to match that of the internal pressure of Starliner and the International Space Station at 14.7 psi. We'll follow along from both sides, from the space station side as well as the Starliner side. Crew aboard the International Space Station will work through procedures to open up the different hatches and prepare the pressurized mating adapter for welcoming Butch and Suni inside the orbital complex. There are many steps in order to outfit the pressurized mating adapter and prepare for their arrival, including opening up various hatches, including the Node 2 forward hatch and what's called the APES hatch. This is the hatch on the station side. On the Starliner side, the hatch is called the IVA, and that will be opened as well to allow a clear path for Butch and Suni to enter into the International Space Station.
Starliner, all books are closed.
Houston copies. We agree, and we're just waiting for the sequence to complete.
Again, you're getting live views from the International Space Station Flight Control Room. On the forward end of the screens there, you see some of the camera is set up in the Node 2 module of the International Space Station. This is at the very forward end. The hatch that you're looking at in this view is the Node 2 forward hatch. That is one of 3 that will be needed to be open in order to welcome Butch and Suni to the International Space Station. Currently closed as part of the docking operations.
Starliner Houston on the big loop. We've all been waiting a little while for this call. That was an OK 3-wire, Fly Navy, docking complete.
Okay, indeed. Nice to be attached to the big city in the sky.
And from the ISS Flight Control Team, congratulations to all NASA and Boeing teams on this historic day. Butch and Suni, nicely done. Welcome back to the ISS.
Outstanding. Great place to be. We're looking forward to staying here for a couple of weeks and getting all the things done in Starliner that we need to get done, and also on station, ready to work.
Welcome aboard, Starliner.
Starliner Capcom Neil Nagata on the right in your screen, flanked to his side by NASA astronaut Mike Fink. To the left of Neil, Starliner Flight Director Ed Van Cise.
We're going to call that the big time.
Yeah, you have extension.
I said we're going to call that the big time approach and controlled collision, and the Claremore grab, grapple, cinch, and hold.
All right, roger that. It's on the record now.
Butch and Suni, of course, very much looking forward to entering the International Space Station, the crew aboard the space station as well.
Starliner Houston on the big loop.
Station's here.
With the residue report on the outside of the Starliner hatch, we're going to work hatches one at a time, starting on the ISS side. So after a pass hatch open for TC, this is 1.302 step 5.6. Let us know if you smell anything off nominal. If you do, close the hatch and egress and we'll talk. But if things are good, we'll take some photos of the Starliner hatch, and assuming that we're still good, we'll work to get the Starliner hatch opened.
Okay, a copy in 1.302. Say again the step. I've got a...
Not a problem, TC. Step 5.6 is the actual APAS hatch opening.
Okay, that may be another...
TC, we're just giving you a big picture right now, so...
One more thing from Starliner.
Go ahead, Starliner.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
TC, we're not ready for you to get into those steps yet. We'll let you know when we are ready. And one additional point here, we want you to focus those photos and your inspection on the actual window in the hatch.
Roger that. Photos on the actual window hatch.
So we're not sure everyone involved, but certainly great work by Flight and the prop team and whoever else was working to get us attached here. So fantastic. We're proud of you.
And we appreciate that down here, Butch. Starliner Houston, on the big loop, I'm ready for you to pick up in step 1 of 1.302, the CST 100 post-docking leak checks and ingress.
Station Houston on the big loop for TC. We're ready for you to perform step 2.1 and 1.302.
Copy and work.
Starliner Houston big loop, just be advised we're deactivating Mustang for your suit doffing activities. I'll let you know when it's off.
Okay, and can you say the procedure one more time? We were screwing around doing other things.
No worries. 1.302, that's the first green block on your activity, on your timeline, CST hatch leak check. And that's step 1 only, please.
Step 1, CST hatch leak check.
Lots happening right now. Congratulations in the Starliner flight control room. Handshakes all around. Crew is carefully awaiting confirmation of hard dock to proceed with the next steps. Of course, opening up the hatches and welcoming Butch and Suni to the International Space Station. The contact and soft capture was confirmed at 12:34 p.m. Central Time. Teams in the room there in Starliner Mission Control celebrating the arrival of Butch and Suni. We're hearing on both ends, on the Starliner end and on the International Space Station end, proceeding to open up the hatches. Celebration here in the International Space Station flight control room as well. Excitement all around to welcome Butch and Suni on board. Again, it'll be a number of hours before we go ahead and open up those hatches. These steps to safely do so are very methodical. We'll follow along and continue our coverage every step of the way and give you updates on estimated times of the hatch opening and the welcome ceremony. The Mustang system that you heard referred to on the loops there is the internal camera system. Hope to...
I know you got the numbers, but 1.2 is 14.8, 14.8.01. We're in our 10-minute wait. We started about 30 seconds ago.
Okay, yeah, copy that. Hey, Butch, say again the time.
Oh, 200.
Roger.
I stand by. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. That's my from TPI counter. Make that 0445.
Couple minutes before I talk to you, are you ready?
And Starliner, Houston, Big Loop, the Mustang cameras are off OFF.
On camera and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, it's a wonderful day in both of the flight control rooms here in Houston. Starliner flight control teams and International Space Station flight control teams, as well as the crew aboard the International Space Station and inside Starliner, all working together to bring these two spacecraft together. We have confirmed docking at 12:34 p.m. Central Time. That was a contact and soft capture. Now the teams in both rooms are celebrating and congratulating all of the hard work that got us to this moment, the two spacecraft together. We're counting down, and we're going to follow along as part of our live coverage every step of the way to take you through the hatch opening steps and welcome Butch and Suni on board the International Space Station. This is just the beginning of the celebrations, but we still have a lot to do. From here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, we'll follow along as the International Space Station crew, specifically Matt Dominic and Tracy Dyson, will work together to open up the hatches and begin the methodical sequence of preparing for Butch and Suni to be welcomed aboard the International Space Station, including pressurizing that vestibule. For now, though, we'll toss it back over to Leah Cheshire and Jim May, who we've been working with and coordinating closely to enable today's docking. Leah and Jim.
Thanks, Gary, and welcome back to the White Flight Control Room, where you can see there is a lot of activity happening behind us. Again, we docked today at 12:34 p.m. Central Time, and we are anticipating hatch opening around 2:20 p.m. Central Time. So the teams are already stepping through those procedures on the space station and on Starliner.
And this is Boeing's Jim May. I'll be signing off. Thank you for letting me be there with you for this pretty historic moment for the Starliner crew, the ISS crew, all of NASA. My counterpart, Boeing's Rebecca Regan, will be taking you through with Leah and the rest of the team for the rest of the hatch opening and the ceremony for Starliner's crew arriving, Butch and Suni arriving at the International Space Station.
That's right. We're not going anywhere. We're staying live until we see Butch and Suni come floating through the hatch. We also anticipate to see some views from the crew while still aboard Starliner through the Mustang video system. We've heard some calls that those cameras have been taken off for now. That way the crew can get out of their suits and into something a little more comfortable before they join the other side of the space station crew. Again, still live here in the International Space Station, in the Starliner flight control room, as teams continue celebrating the arrival of Starliner today. That happened at 12:34 p.m. Central Time.
Starliner, just curious, who is setting prop today?
Say again, Butch?
Okay, who's sitting prop today?
It's Mr. Lenort, sir.
Mr. Wilmore, a man we all look up to. Thank you. Please relay your team that some really great expeditious work. It's not unnoticed, of course. Wonderful.
Yeah, he's not standing now, so I don't have to look up to him, but we copy that. Appreciate it.
Station Houston on the big loop. ISS thrusters have been enabled, and as you can probably guess, hard maid is complete.
Station copies. Great news. All right, Houston, we're showing 10 minutes, and the numbers look the same, except the vestibule pressure went down 1/100th of a percent.
Roger that, Butch. Good leak checks were good for you to pick up in 1.4.
Okay, got 1.4. All right, Houston, initial hatch leak check is complete.
Roger that.
And we'll stand by until you verify that the India's power down is done.
All right, Butch. Yeah, we concur. India's power down's complete. We're working with ISS for the initial vestibule pressurization. As you heard, we're going to have a delta-less procedure where we're not opening the hatches SIMO.
Okay.
Station Houston on the big loop for TC. You have a go to perform step 3 in 1.302. TC Houston on the big loop. We'd like for you to close the APAS equalization valve.
Starliner Houston, air to ground 1.
Copy, good config.
Houston, Starliner, we're air to ground 1. Just to let you know, also the WAP and all the CNS stuff is stored down, and centerline camera's all stored down.
Okay, hey, yeah, copy that. And then for your panel, Sunny, the pilot panel, can you take space talk listen, please?
Absolutely. Deal complete.
Okay, yeah, copy that. Thank you. We just get a hum because we got the big loop configured. Figured we'd move over to air to ground 1 just for a little bit to declutter the loops. No, we're not per timeline. So if you take a look at your timeline, we were calling up centerline camera WAP, and then you got all your suit DOF and those activities. You can reference your plan on the tablet. Just curious with the centerline camera, before we turned it off, did you guys catch a last battery reading, or maybe you saw something right as we got close?
It was right about 3/4, actually, because that was the one that I had charged up overnight. So it was 3/4 when we shut it down.
Okay, great news. Thank you so much.
Houston Station on the big loop. Just a report per procedure. GMT 18:19:20 was when the APAS equalization valve was closed.
Houston copies.
And Neil, when you guys are ready for those comm checks, let us know. Also, we're just standing by for that as well.
Yeah, copy that.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our continuous coverage of the CFT, the Crew Flight Test mission to the International Space Station, the first flight of astronauts aboard Boeing's Starliner spacecraft. I'm NASA's Leah Cheshire. We saw docking of the Starliner spacecraft to the International Space Station at 12:34 p.m. Central Time.
And I'm Boeing's Rebecca Regan. And just before I got on console here, there was NASA leadership and Boeing leadership in the room congratulating everyone for docking with the International Space Station today with the Starliner. First time that we've ever had humans on board. So really exciting day. And it took a little bit to get there. And I think on display was just an ultimate team sport by the Boeing and NASA team this afternoon.
Absolutely, and not to mention the hard work and efforts of our two crew members aboard Starliner itself. That's NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. They are still in the Starliner capsule. We have confirmation that hard capture is complete, so the spacecraft is securely attached to the Node 2 forward port on the International Space Station, and teams are continuing to work through the steps ahead of hatch opening. We anticipate that hatch opening to come in about an hour, 2:20 p.m. Central Time. This view on the right-hand side of your screen, NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson is working to prepare the space station side of the hatch to open and welcome the two new visitors to the orbiting laboratory.
On the left-hand side of the screen, you see Starliner there docked to the International Space Station. You know, we said it took a little bit to get to this point today, and, you know, I couldn't help but think Butch used to say, you know, if I wanted to, I could do barrel rolls around the International Space Station, and while he didn't do that today, they certainly did put Starliner through its paces.
Yeah, the crew had a couple of opportunities to do some manual piloting. One of those happened yesterday before their rest period. They did these far field manual piloting operations, getting to take control of the spacecraft and maneuver it. This is a test flight, again, to make sure that Starliner is ready for operational rotation missions. And so with that completion of the manual piloting yesterday, the teams, or I should say the astronauts, did the same thing today at about 260 meters away from the International Space Station.
Definitely got to put their test pilot chops to work today.
Station Houston on the big loop for Matt and timeline.
Go ahead.
Matt, sorry for the delay there. So we're going to work through hatches as quick as we can. As far as we could tell, we're about an hour behind on the timeline. And for your awareness, the second PAO event on the timeline is canceled for today.
Copy, yeah, that's what we were looking at. You gave us the slide time, so we expect roughly an hour for each activity, which makes total sense.
Yep. And did you copy the call on the exercise go?
Yes, you copy the exercise go. We're busy with other stuff, but yes.
And
also, Houston, for SA, both Node 2 cameras are mounted and loaded for PO event if you want two different angles.
We appreciate that. We'll take a look. And Matt, one additional thing for you. Depending on how things look like at the end of the day, we may slide your wake-up time to the right by an hour tomorrow.
Station copies. We're so happy to have you aboard.
Comms continue from teams on the ground to the Starliner crew and the crew aboard the International Space Station. Now, we are in a satellite handover. They were discussing some upcoming PAO, or Public Affairs Office events. The first of those will be the welcome ceremony. We anticipate that to happen about 20 minutes after hatch opening. Again, tracking hatch opening for around 2:20 p.m. Central Time. The second of those events may be rescheduled at a later date, but it was a private discussion. The second of those events, correction, was the VIP event that we were anticipating later this afternoon. We previously heard the call that the crew is go to resume exercise on the International Space Station. This is something that they are asked to stand down from when it comes time for a spacecraft to dock or depart. That's so that there aren't any loads imparted on the space station as any crew members are moving.
You may see there on your screen someone familiar. It looks like that person's smiling, and it is Suni Williams, pilot of the crew flight test on Starliner. Again, we are live here in the Starliner Flight Control Room at Mission Control Houston in Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. And the view on your screen is of Starliner on its crewed flight test to the International Space Station with NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. The spacecraft arrived at 12:34 p.m. Central Time as the space station was flying over the southern Indian Ocean. Crews on both the Starliner side and the space station side are starting to walk through their procedures for hatch opening. We're expecting that to come around 2:20 p.m. Central Time. It would be followed shortly by a welcome ceremony for the two visiting crew members. Part of that preparation ahead of
hatch opening is vestibule pressurization. The vestibule is the space between the Starliner spacecraft and the International Space Station. Of course, this was previously exposed to a vacuum, the vacuum of space, before Starliner docked. So we want to pressurize that. We use the air, or the pressure, I should say, from the interior of the International Space Station. When it comes time for Starliner to undock, we will regain that pressure rather than venting it overboard.
So, as Leah mentioned, as we docked to the International Space Station, we were flying over the South Indian Ocean, and so much synergy there for Suni in particular. You know, she chose the gravity indicator, a narwhal, to bring awareness to research in space and research in the oceans. She says they go hand in hand. She also named the Starliner Calypso after Jacques Cousteau. So just really cool that she got a chance to do that today, and I certainly hope that people from India were tuning in because Suni is from Indian descent.
And on the right side of your screen, you saw a glimpse of NASA astronaut Matt Dominic and NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps as they prepare to welcome Butch and Suni aboard the space station. Both of these crew members arrived earlier this year as part of the Crew 8 mission. It's both of their first flight to the International Space Station. On the contrary, for our two visitors today, this is the third visit to the space station for both Butch and Suni.
Seeing live views now of Starliner outside the International Space Station through a space station camera, hoping to get at least 4 views of Starliner from inside the capsule here in just a few minutes. Crew's getting ready, and we'll open the hatches and cross over soon. So if you all tuned in to coverage as they were making their way to the International Space Station, you may have heard Butch say a couple times that they had donned their fancy sweaters. So I'm very curious to see what they're wearing as they cross the hatch today.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the hatch, on the space station side, that's NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson. She arrived to the orbiting laboratory in February. She is on an approximately 6-month mission. She and Matt Dominic, also a NASA astronaut, are sort of the prime members for configuring the space station side for welcoming Butch and Suni today.
Station Houston on Space to Ground 2 for Matt and Starliner hatch.
Go ahead, for Matt.
Hey, Matt, we want to go over the APAS hatch plan with you one more time. So once we get that APAS hatch open, we're not ready for that yet. We want you to do an inspection and take pictures of the Starliner hatch and the residue. Once you've had a chance to do that, give us a call and give us a description of what you see. Now, if anything liberates or you experience any irritation, we want you to close the hatch and give us a call.
Okay, so I'm not doing it now, but when we open the APAS hatch, I will open it. I will use my eyes and my nose to smell, and I will take pictures with the camera. If there's anything residue or anything, I will close the APAS hatch.
Good read, and we want you to focus on the Starliner hatch window.
Copy the window.
Who is Matt?
Yeah, that's what we're wondering, but you can ask that on the big loop.
Who is Matt?
And Starliner Houston, while we investigate who Matt is, we will, I'm just curious if you guys are good with us turning the Mustang cameras back on.
Give us a few minutes for Mustang. We'll call you.
Yeah, no rush, no rush.
Station Houston on 2 for Matt. We see you in the PMA. You don't have a go for APAS open yet, so stand by on that.
Houston, Matt on 2. I am not opening the hatch. I'm just setting everything out so when the time comes, we can move quick.
Houston copies.
Who is Matt?
We are about an hour and 12 minutes post-docking of Starliner's first crewed flight to the International Space Station. On the left hand of your screen there, you see Starliner, and you may see a little black line, or maybe a bigger black line on the thermal protection system of Starliner. And that is because Starliner, this particular crew module, has been to space and back again on orbital flight test 1. And so that is residual marks from the ablation of reentry. You're also seeing the horizon there underneath Starliner, a beautiful view. And we're going to go ahead and toss it over to Gary Jordan in the International Space Station control room, who will cover what's going on the right-hand side of your screen.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, we're here in the International Space Station flight control room, working hand in hand with the teams in the Starliner flight control room down the hall. Live from this view, you can see the flight controllers hard at work, looking after the procedures of opening up the hatches and making sure we are going through the methodical steps necessary to open up the hatches and welcome Butch and Suni aboard the International Space Station. Inside Node 2 right now, you see NASA astronaut Matt Dominic working through some of those procedures. Teams are working through a leak check just to make sure we can work through those. In the meantime, Matt Dominic has set up a variety of different cameras inside Node 2. Some of them will be used to live stream the welcome of Butch and Suni to the International Space Station. We're getting a view from one of those views now. Dominic currently donning some of the equipment necessary to perform an investigation once those hatches are opened. Now, there are 3 hatches needed to be opened to welcome Butch and Suni to the International Space Station. One of them is already opened. You can see at the very forward end of your screen there, the Node 2 hatch. Once this is open, you can see through to the pressurized mating adapter all the way down to the next hatch, which is the APAS hatch. This is on the station side, and on the other side of that hatch would be the vestibule that separates the Starliner from the International Space Station. That vestibule right now being checked as part of the leak checks necessary to pressurize that vestibule and open up those hatches. There's another hatch on the other side. This is the Starliner hatch called the IVA. And teams will be working to work through those procedures to open that hatch, which is uniquely a free-floating hatch. It's not on a hinge, so the crew will work to remove that hatch and then temporarily stow it as part of the procedures to welcome Butch and Suni aboard. Now, some of the gear you are looking at, Matt Dominic, starting to don, is allowing for the inspection of those hatches. As part of any normal procedure of opening up the hatches, just to make sure it is truly safe, the crew inside the station dons some goggles that have, and you can see the headlamp to illuminate some of the working space that's necessary to look for any foreign object debris or anything that is part of the hatch opening sequence to ensure there's nothing obstructing the various hatch components, and we can ensure a good sequence of opening up those hatches. Now, Dominic is going through and getting just a jump start before giving the go to open up the hatch and begin that sequence. Just making sure he's got the necessary gear. In the meantime, NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps appearing in the foreground and working with Dominic there in the background, who will be leading the steps necessary to open up the hatches. Some of the reports you've heard on the big loop include inspecting some residue that was reported on the Starliner forward window. This is on the IVA hatch.
With you on one, that we haven't skipped over anything. I know we're a little bit behind the timeline.
Well, as far as I can tell, we've got almost everything squared away. Is there anything in particular you were looking for?
No, just wanted to make sure that that there's nothing we've missed.
Well, you know, what would be nice are some tablet battery percentages. And Butch, where we are is we're just going to wait on the leak checks. We're still waiting on the leak checks for the vestibule. And then, we've got the deltas to the hatch opening. So we're still in the middle of the big leak check.
Okay, number 9 is 22, number 12 is 35. Neither one of them are charging right now.
Okay, roger that.
The voices you're hearing as part of that communication is that of Neil Nagata, the Starliner Capcom, over in the other room, speaking with Butch Wilmore on the other side of that hatch. Just as we are seeing.
And Butch, Richie's suggesting that since we're going to be on the tablets for a little while, that if you want to, you can go ahead and put one on charge on the spider cable.
Okay, yeah, we'll put 12 on it.
Roger.
Again, hearing some of the comms between Neil Nagata, Capcom in Starliner Flight Control Room, and Butch Wilmore on the other side of the hatch. They have their own procedures to work through to prepare Starliner for the hatch opening operations. In the meantime, we're getting views from the Node 2 module of the International Space Station. You see there Matt Dominic in the foreground working with Jeanette Epps, both NASA astronauts working through the procedures to open up the hatches. Now they're getting a jump start on some of the steps necessary to open up the hatch. There are a couple of steps ahead. As you can see, they have these cameras set up to allow us to have some wonderful live views from inside in preparation for those hatch opening steps. But once Butch and Suni enter into the International Space Station.
Just, on air to ground 1, Butch and Suni. Be advised, we're going to swap S-band strings so CDH can do some file manipulation on the DRM. I'll let you know when we're on string 1. That's for S-band, space to grounds.
And we copy.
Now again, from inside Node 2, various cameras and lights set up to allow the best possible views of Butch and Suni's ingress into the International Space Station. So we're witnessing some of those steps.
And Butch or Suni, for the tablets, we'd like to know if you've got both tablets now configured for airplane mode.
That's affirmative.
Roger that, thanks.
Quick question.
Yeah.
The undergarments we wore under our suits for launching up till now, we're not sure what remained on the spacecraft and what was taken off. Do we have another supply of undergarments, or do we have to save these and wear them back?
All right, we're going to check on that.
So a quick recap. Starliner docked to the International Space Station with a contact and soft capture at 12:34 p.m. Central Time today, June 6th. Crew here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room has been working with the crew you see here on your screen, the Expedition 71 crew members on board the station. We're working in tandem with the Starliner Flight Control team.
On Air to Ground 1, we went ahead and swapped over to Space to Ground 1 transceiver. And as far as the suit undergarments go, we're going to have to hang on to those for the mission. That's the only set you got.
Okay, only set we got. Thanks, I think.
We're hearing some of the steps from inside the Starliner capsule, from inside Calypso. Butch and Suni both working through the steps necessary to prepare Starliner prior to the hatch opening sequence and the welcome by the Expedition 71 crew you see here on your screen inside the International Space Station. The steps needed to prepare are not too different from preparing for a long journey. For more, again, we're working here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room in tandem with the Starliner Flight Control team in the same building, just next door in the White Flight Control Room. For more on this, let's head over to Leah and Rebecca, who are following along with the teams in Starliner Flight Control Room. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Gary. Yes, you're hearing Capcom Neil Nagata talk to Butch Wilmore aboard Calypso, the approximate size of a minivan. And so you're hearing that, and it's definitely relatable for a long trip with your family. You know, where did I pack my items? And you know, what's coming next? I'm surprised we haven't heard anyone say, are we there yet? Or can we get into space station yet? So very relatable to a long journey that any one of us would take. Obviously a lot harder to get to. We saw that on display today. Looking forward to seeing Butch and Suni both in the Starliner spacecraft and being welcomed in the International Space Station.
And we are still in the period in which we are pressurizing the vestibule, the space between the Starliner and the International Space Station hatches. Again, it was exposed to vacuum. We need to bring that up to the same pressure as what is in both spacecraft. But to take a look back At the timeline of our mission so far, launch occurred yesterday at 9:52 a.m. Central Time from Space Launch Complex 41 in Florida. The OI burn, or the orbital insertion burn, occurred about 30 minutes later, that coming at about 10:23 a.m. Central Time. Since then, Starliner conducted a few more maintenance burns overnight, and then this morning got back into its burn plan with the NHPC-1 burn coming at 7:52 a.m. Central Time. That's a height adjust burn, followed by the NHPC-2 burn at 8:14 a.m. Central Time. Both of those good burns and just fine-tuning our approach to the International Space Station. The TPI, or the terminal phase initiation burn, TPI burn, that occurred at 9:02 a.m. Central Time. Also a good burn. There were two inbound fly-around burns, one at 9:47, one at 10:07 a.m. These swung Starliner up and out in front of the approach corridor, and eventually we had the approach corridor initiation burn. Once Starliner was on that approach corridor, that means they were directly in front of the Node 2 forward docking axis. That's where they docked today.
Pass hatch.
Go ahead.
We could give you a go for step 5 and 1.302.
Copy, step 1.302.
Good copy.
Going in.
So ahead of that vestibule pressurization, we have to do leak checks to make sure the levels are balancing out before we bring pressure into the vestibule. So those are now complete, and we are go to proceed with pressurizing the vestibule.
Houston, Matt on 2, APAS equalization valve is open, looking for your go in 5.12.
You have a go for step 5.2.
Houston, Matt on 2, how copy?
Matt, we didn't get anything if you called down earlier.
Copy. You gave me a go in 5.2. I think I missed a big picture call earlier. I overheard part of it. Understand, Starliner is keeping its hatch closed, and we're going to take the picture, so I'm proceeding with 5.3, just clarifying.
That is correct. And if you see anything, we want a description of what you see. And if there's any concern, you could close the hatch. And the focus area of inspection and photos is the window.
That makes total sense. I was just making sure 1,000% we were skipping that FTC call from Mission Control Starliner. Thanks.
Starliner Houston on the big loop. Teacher's direction blockage, so we're going to be on the big loop.
Starliner copy, big loop.
All right, Butch, hey, we're ready for you guys to pick up in 1.302. It's going to be step 6.3 only, prepping for hatch open. Right now, I think you copied, Matt's got the APAS hatch open, so they're doing some work there, and then they're going to take a look at that stuff that you reported on the window.
Okay, well, that's 1.302, step 6.3 only, and who is Matt?
Still working on it.
Again, if you're just joining us, this is a live view of the International Space Station. Matt Dominic, NASA astronaut, there in the front of the frame. He is working to bring on board the new visitors to the space station. That would be NASA's Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, who arrived on the Boeing Starliner spacecraft at 12:34 p.m. Central Time. This is NASA's Boeing crew flight test mission. It is the very first flight of astronauts aboard Starliner to the International Space Station.
Station Houston on 2 for Matt and APAS.
Go ahead.
Hey, can you confirm for us where you are in step 5?
We're waiting 5 minutes for hatch seal relaxation. Specifically 5.5.
Okay, copy. Thanks for the confirmation.
Reviewing the crew's procedures, this is the next step ahead of opening the APAS hatch. That is the hatch on the space station side. Of course, Starliner has its own hatch that will need to be opened. That is the IVA, or the intravehicular activity hatch.
Station Houston, on the big loop for any available crew. Looks like there's an MV over one of the IMVs going into Columbus. We'd appreciate it if you can move it. It's over the IMV. The valve part. Appreciate it.
As you can see, NASA astronaut Matt Dominic has donned or put on some safety goggles and a mask as he prepares to open the APAS hatch. This has been exposed to the vacuum of space, and with the docking of a new spacecraft, he's taking an extra precaution ahead of opening that hatch. Of course, we will still have to wait for the Starliner side of the hatch to be opened. Matt Dominic, NASA astronaut, has opened the APAS hatch. He will go in and take some photographs of that space between the APAS and Starliner hatch.
Starliner, Houston, Big Loop, you okay with us activating Mustang?
Yes, we are now ready for Mustang.
Okay, it's coming up.
Houston, Matt on 2 for inspection.
Go ahead, Matt.
From what I can tell, nothing looks unusual. Was able to yell at Butch through the window and Suni, which was great. Now that we have light in there with the helmet lamp, neither Butch nor I can see anything of interest on the window. It looks nominal.
I think what we saw was dust, maybe on our side. There is some stuff on the outside of the main window, the cabin window, but that one looks good. I agree.
Copy that, Matt. Great news. Thanks.
Those words coming from teams on the ground to Matt Dominic and Butch Wilmore aboard the International Space Station and Starliner, respectively. They were looking to see if there was any residue on the small window that is on
Matt,
the...
you go ahead and continue with the rest of step 5.
Welcome.
Starliner, no action on a prop caution. It's expected.
Again, they were looking for any residue that might be on the window on the IVA hatch, the intravehicular activity hatch. This is the hatch that is on Starliner. Hearing a good report and no further actions there, so they are going to prepare to open up that hatch and welcome Butch and Suni to the International Space Station. This will be Butch and Suni's first time opening Starliner's hatch in space, but they have had plenty of practice here on Earth. They've trained extensively with Boeing's mock-up trainer hatch and a standalone hatch at Johnson Space Center in Houston. They've also worked with the pad abort vehicle hatch in Florida, which is very bulky and very heavy.
And your report about your window, I can give you a go now for step 6.2. In addition to the go for step 6.3 that I gave you a few minutes ago, but stand by for the next go.
That pad abort vehicle hatch in Florida is very bulky and very heavy, especially when you are not in microgravity like they are today. But the Starliner flight crew integration team, made up of mostly human factors engineers, came up with a way that allowed Butch and Suni to train with the bulk of the hatch without the 100-pound weight of the hatch by using a 15-pound foam replica that helped validate hatch stowage and moving about the Starliner cabin.
It's been about an hour and 45 minutes since docking today of Starliner to the International Space Station, that coming again at 12:34 p.m. Central Time, and we are standing by for hatch opening to officially welcome Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams back to the International Space Station. This is the third flight to the space station for both crew members.
I'm sorry, Butch, didn't quite copy that. Did you say 6.2 complete?
Affirmative, 6.2 complete.
Roger.
You can turn down the cabin temp some if you'd like.
And no action cabin temp high. I didn't copy your last, though.
Ted, I can turn it down. It's getting, remember how it was cold earlier, but now it's fine, and we can turn it down some. It's currently at the 230 position.
All right, Butch, yeah, your discretion on the temperature.
Okay, it's at 11 o'clock.
Roger. Starliner Houston on the big loop. Big moment here. You are go to get into step. All right, no action message. You're go to pick up in step 6.4 and through the rest of step 6 to open the hatch.
.4, here we go.
We are standing by for the opening of the Starliner hatch. Several Expedition 71 crew members on the space station side eagerly awaiting the arrival of their two new visitors, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. Again, we docked at 12:34 p.m. Central Time.
Station Houston on the big loop. We're about 1 minute out to a handover. We'd like to hold off on ingress. We'd like to get this on video.
Station copies.
Leah mentioned and the anticipation for hatch open of the Starliner spacecraft. And if you all tuned in for OFT2, you know that that hatch open actually came from the space station side. This time around, it will come from Starliner side, the first time that we've done that in space, which is going to be very exciting to witness. And this time will be a little bit different too. Last time we turned the latch inside counterclockwise, like lefty loosey, righty tighty. This time we will actually have Butch or Suni, depends on who decides to do it. They will turn the latch 1 1/4 turn clockwise from inside the Starliner. They also have a window that you've heard them talk about, so we might be able to see their faces from inside that camera that you saw on the International Space Station.
And we do have a handover of the tracking data relay satellite system. You heard that call to the crew just before we lost those views. Letting them know that we would just wait until we regained communications because we definitely don't want to miss the moment that Butch and Suni float into the International Space Station. So we expect to regain visual
Starliner, no action, cabin humidity high. And I don't know if you copied Will's call earlier. We'll just wait till we have KU band back until you start coming into the ISS.
That's Capcom Neil Nagata speaking with the Starliner crew. Letting them know we are standing by for hatch opening. And we have regained video.
Back with KU and video.
With the exception of crew sleep, Butch and Suni have been very busy aboard the spacecraft. And I know that our Starliner and Boeing and NASA teammates here on the ground just can't wait to talk to them about their experiences so that we know how to make adjustments for future missions, longer duration missions to the International Space Station. Earlier this afternoon, I got a text message from former NASA astronaut Chris Ferguson, who helped in the Starliner's development, and I bet he can't wait either. His fingerprints are all over the spacecraft, and now so are Butch and Suni's.
Like Rebecca mentioned, teams will be looking for feedback from Butch and Suni on how their flight uphill went. This is a crew flight test, so there have been several demonstrations that have happened so far and will continue throughout the docked time frame and during undocking and landing. Teams will start looking for feedback on habitability of the spacecraft, how it performs as a safe haven if that were ever to be needed, manual piloting, which we saw a couple of times during the ride uphill. And once the hatch is open, we'll be waiting to see the bell on the space station side be rung to welcome 2 new visitors to the International Space Station. While Starliner is docked to the International Space Station, there will be more flight test objectives achieved, along with the ones that Leah just mentioned that have already been achieved, as well as operational capability checkouts. Those are things where the crew gets to interface with the Starliner and we get to check off some more items.
This is a primarily crew interface test, so we're looking forward to hearing more about their experiences. But in terms of flight test objectives, they will establish joint ventilation with ISS, recharge Starliner's batteries, verify telemetry paths and file transfers, transfer cargo to and from the ISS, including a urine processing assembly pump that Starliner actually we were able to put into the Starliner while it was at the launch pad because it was a need for the International Space Station. So proving the flexibility of not only the spacecraft to fly cargo, but also of the team. A lot of teamwork went into that across the NASA and Boeing community to get that pump up. And I believe they're going to be working on that pretty quickly aboard the International Space Station.
And while Starliner is on the International Space Station, when we docked earlier and confirmed that we were hard mated, the umbilical started receiving power from the space station. Starliner will also be put into a quiescent mode to minimize the power it's taking from the space station during its docked time frame. It can be turned on very quickly if that were to be needed. From what we can see in this view, it looks like we have most, if not all, of the crew members aboard the International Space Station awaiting their visitors to open the hatch on the Starliner side. Currently living on the station, we have the Expedition 71 crew, including NASA astronauts Tracy Dyson, Mike Barrett, Matthew Dominic, and Jeanette Epps, and Roscosmos cosmonauts Oleg Kononenko, Nikolai Chub, and Alexander Grabyankin. Of course, we're adding 2 more NASA astronauts to that mix today, bringing the total of people living and working on the space station to 9.
Leah, this again is just a display of a team sport. When we think about Starliner, yes, it is an American capability, but it's also going to provide global access to the International Space Station and potentially new destinations in low Earth orbit. We'll see at least one international crew member fly up on Starliner 1, Josh Kutrick, Canadian Space Agency astronaut.
Station Houston on the Big Loop, just for status. CFT crew has just opened up the IVA hatch equalization valve.
Cannot rush into opening 2 vehicles that are connected in space. Want to make sure that pressure is equalized between the 2 vehicles.
All eyes on the IVA hatch.
Maybe they're not in a rush.
Now 2 hours exactly since Starliner docked to the International Space Station on NASA's Boeing crew flight test. Again, that coming at 12:34 p.m. Central Time. We are just standing by for Butch and Suni to float in as the first crew members to fly aboard Starliner.
I saw Suni Williams at the orbital flight test landing in New Mexico, and I remember her telling Rosie the Rocketeer, which was the ATD riding in the vehicle, "Hey, get out of my seat." So maybe she just doesn't want to get out yet. While we can't see what's happening inside Starliner right now, we do know that after lessons learned from Orbital Flight Test 2, the teammates for Starliner actually redesigned the hatch stowage procedures and the straps. So basically modifications to securing the mechanism. So it floated around a little bit more than we anticipated for OFT2. So they went from 2 anchor points to 4 anchor points. So could imagine maybe they're working on that right now. So the hatch is likely out of the way and they're working on stowing it.
Yes, it's definitely not as quick as the movies when you watch spacecraft arrive to another orbiting laboratory. There are several procedures that have to take place before the crew can fly in, things that need to be stowed, and we take careful detail to track everything aboard the International Space Station as well as aboard a visiting spacecraft to make sure everyone arrives and leaves with what they brought up or what they needed to leave on board.
I do remember Suni saying during one of their free flight downlink events where we heard the audio saying that she promised the team she was going to clean up after herself, and Butch was modeling that for her. looks like the anticipation is building with the International Space Station crew. So, we kind of talked about it before, like a road trip, like little kids waiting for your parents or grandparents to arrive for the holidays. It's probably really exciting and also really like, hey, come on.
Yeah, and the crews aboard the International Space Station, they get a lot of opportunities to talk with their friends and family at home, but we really only see new visitors essentially every 6 months, as we either have a Soyuz arrival or Crew Dragon arrival or now a Starliner arrival. So it's always really exciting to see new friends arrive and new faces at the International Space Station.
NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps seen in view on the left-hand side of your screen, and she actually trained to be on the Starliner 1 mission. So I'm sure she's very excited to get inside too and actually see it from space and not just from the ground.
Yeah, Jeanette flew up on the Crew 8 mission, and having that ability to cross-train on 2 different vehicles is a pretty special opportunity.
Hey, Butch and Suni put in a lot of work to get here, so they deserve to take their time.
We're looking for a grand entrance. Teams here in the white flight control room are conducting a handover between shifts. The new flight director on console is Rick Henfling. And we are still standing by for Butch and Suni to float from Starliner into the space station. Lots of cheering here in the room, big hugs. Suni William coming through in her blue flight suit. Oh. And followed shortly behind by Commander of Starliner, Butch Wilmore, now back on the space station, the third visit for both astronauts and the first crewed flight test of the Starliner spacecraft. Everyone looking very happy, like they had a great ride. And the ingress or the entrance of Butch and Suni coming at 2:45 p.m. Central Time. Again, their arrival to the space station today at 12:34 p.m. Central Time, bringing the space station total crew right now up to 9 people. Arriving for the first time ever in Boeing Starliner spacecraft. I can imagine they're very happy to see people without masks. You know, they've been in quarantine since a couple weeks before the first launch attempt in May, finally launching, earlier this week on June 5th, docking on June 6th. And so big smiles there. I'm sure seeing those not behind masks is probably something they're really excited about. And again, that launch coming yesterday morning at 9:52 a.m. Central Time from Space Launch Complex 41 in Florida atop a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket